Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I want to thank our witnesses as well for being with us today. You know, today's hearing is incredibly important. Democrats and Republicans alike understand that when it comes to China, we need bold and decisive policies that can combat the dangerous and unfair trade practices of the Chinese Communist Party. Under the previous administration, the United States started addressing some of the long-standing issues in the area of global trade. And now we must hold China accountable for the phase one commitments and end the trade moratoriums that's holding our country back. China certainly hasn't stopped pursuing world dominance in the global markets. Their Belt and Road Initiative, Made in China 2025 agenda, and continued massive subsidies provide rightful concern to the United States and our allies, not to mention a litany of other troubling actions like their forced labor practices, intellectual property theft, and menacing military flights in airspace near Taiwan. Simply put, the United States cannot take a back seat to the Chinese Communist Party, which is why it's important that we remove trade barriers to trade negotiations, reinforce the phase one commitments, and re-engage with China on phase two, utilizing our existing leverage. I've said this many times, and you know, my colleagues on this side of the aisle have called for trade tools like TPA so that we can continue to build upon the good trade work from the previous administration. And as a representative from an agriculture community, I know that enforcing phase one purchasing agreements would provide significant benefits to the United States. All of us here know that while China has exhibited compliance in some areas of the agreement, they've fallen short in ag, manufacturing, and energy purchases. Phase one was a significant first step, but we need to follow through and a sequel that continues to advance the interests of American workers and businesses. Without that action, I fear that China's practices will further exacerbate the discriminatory treatment, market distortions, and widespread IP theft. Mr. Willems, the United States must have a leadership role in writing trade rules for the 21st century. We've made great first step through our work with USMCA, and I'm hopeful we can build upon this bipartisan momentum to negotiate new trade agreements with willing partners such as the UK and Kenya and within the Indo-Pacific area. However, I'm concerned that the administration does not have the tools it requires because of the expiration of the Trade Promotion Authority. Could you speak a little bit about the importance of the TPA in countering China's growing influence abroad?
Thank you, Congressman. I'm very happy to do so. And I agree with, I think, your general premise, which is that we really need to show leadership in getting into trade agreements around the world. And I will, to take a step back, I will say, look, I think that in many respects, we can be complimentary of this administration where they have continued the tough on China policy and they have continued a lot of Trump administration policies that people feared they would roll back, some of the investment restrictions and things like that. But the big hole in their strategy that needs to be filled is this void with offensive trade agreements. And TPA is the tool that we use. It's the oversight tool that you have to encourage them to do so and to work with them on what the negotiating objectives should be, and then to ensure that it can get passed through Congress. And so I think TPA is essential. And I would say, you know, we've talked a lot about CPTPP and Indo-Pacific agreements, which is clearly part of this equation. But the two others that you mentioned, the UK and Kenya, I think are also important. And I think they are agreements that really should be bipartisan. And if you look at the UK, this is a country who for many years had actually been resistant to getting tough on China. They've been changing in recent years. And I think getting an agreement where we link our supply chains with them, we create, common standards can help encourage them to stand up to China in an even more robust fashion. And then Kenya, this is a country China's targeted with Belt and Road funding. It's a country where they have put a lot of resources in trying to build their relationship. And we need to be in the game and again, give them an alternative. And really, it would be historic on the African continent to be the first FTA that we do there. And I think our trade policy has not been focused enough on Africa, especially when China's trying to expand its influence there. So I like all the ideas that you have.
Well, great. I just wish we had more time to talk about. I mean, there's so many important issues here with intellectual property theft and labor rights and forced labor issues that are out there. I just wish we had more time to talk about how do we solve these issues. But I will give back my time, Mr. Chairman.